Well, good evening and a very warm welcome on behalf of Milim to this evening's presentation. Welcome to our live audience here in Leeds, and a warm welcome to all the rest of you, wherever you may be in the world. This evening, our series of online talks and conversations continues with our guest, Alan Meerkin, and I'll introduce Alan in just a moment. For those of you here in person, if you want to ask a question, simply raise your hand. The rest of you know the drill. There's a Q&A facility on your screen. Please type whatever you'd like to ask in there, and we'll do our best to get through as many of your questions as possible. I should add, for those of you in the room, there is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm goes off, please leave by the nearest exit, which is probably the one behind you. You also will notice, for those of you at home, a chat facility, and this allows you to send a message to all of the other participants on this webinar, should you wish to do so. And finally, we are recording this event, so if any of your friends want to watch it, it will appear on the Milim website at milim.org.uk in the next few days. There you will find recordings of other past events and details of our future programme, for which you can book tickets. And so to our esteemed guest, Alan Meerkin is a journalist, a Jerusalem-based photographer and journalist. He grew up in Melbourne before moving to Israel in 1990, initially working as a lawyer in Israel's Ministry of Justice. In 2020, he began photographing the daily life throughout Israel. He's the publisher of a book distilling Jerusalem, portraits of the city at many given moments. Now, Alan was with us just under a year ago. You will find a recording of that event on our website if you missed it. But of course, over that time, much has changed. In fact, saying much has changed is probably an understatement. And that's something that hopefully Alan is going to explore a little bit in his talk with us now. So without further ado, a very warm Milim, welcome to Alan Meerkin.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank Milim for inviting me back. I assume I did something right last year, that I've been invited back. So special thank you to Alan Benstock and Jonathan Strait. I'd also especially like to thank Mickey Hillman and Simon Ottman and their family, who have been extraordinarily hospitable and have really made me part of the family, and I very much enjoyed the time with them. I'll just say before we go on, you know, I recently did a sleep test in Israel, and when I realized this was going to be on Zoom, I wondered whether it was going to be a similar experience. And of course, now that I've been hooked up to this microphone, it feels like I'm back at the Kupat Cholim, at the medical insurance, and they've sort of connected me up. So I hope that I don't fall asleep here, and if I do, that my responses are the right ones. The other thing is, now that we've started, I'll just explain that in Israel, this is actually called a Madonna. That's literally what it's called. So you can use that piece of information at a party, if you like. So last year when I traveled and I came here, and Australia and Scotland, I was taking around and displaying an exhibit that I made called Quotidian, which is all about understanding everyday life. Now, I'm not going to discuss that now because I discussed it last year, and many of you saw it, whether it was here or in Israel or some other place. This year's talk is nuances and challenges of everyday life in Israel. So what I'd like to do, perhaps to make it a little bit easier for you, is to explain. I'm going to divide up this talk really into 4 sections. First, I'm going to explain to you what is the purpose of photography as I see it and how I fit into that. Secondly, I'll show you some photographs from my book, so you get an idea of what I do with street photography and why I do it. Thirdly, I'd like to show you just a few photos of an exhibit which I opened just before I came here. It's open now in Jerusalem. Anybody who's in Jerusalem, I assume that means the people on Zoom primarily, but anybody who is in Israel can go to the community gardens at the Museum of Natural History, and you'll find there the exhibit which I opened called The Beating Communal Heart. My last exhibit there was about the nature of the gardens, and this one is about the community that runs the gardens and the community that comes to enjoy the gardens. And of course, well, we can't say the elephant in the room because it's just too obvious, is the getting a feel through my photography of the temperature on the street in Israel and abroad since October 7. When I spoke here last year, it was in August, and things had not gone the way that we expected at that time. So I'll hopefully show you a few photographs from that so that you get a feeling for the experience of our times at the moment. So are we able to see the photographs? Yeah, because it's a video program. Okay, so most people, I think in the last few years, most people haven't taken photographs for the reasons that we're used to, memorializing or remembering things. It's more about connection. It's how do I connect with my friends and with the world? So one of the things you can see from this photograph, of course, is the selfie. It's the craziest thing. When I first heard the word selfie, I did not expect it to become a fad, and of course it totally has. Selfie is, of course, you can see the young lady in this picture. She wants to show all of her girlfriends that she's in a beautiful place and her boyfriend is lavishing her with attention, and how beautiful that is. This is her connecting with the world. And in fact, I was reading recently that the word selfie should, in reality, be changed and exchanged for the word alone, because that's what's happening. She's sitting there alone. But the other thing about selfies is that they're very Instagrammable. In other words, people are taking photos today in order to share with the world and to present this new image of themselves. And it's because of the concept of Instagram, the facility that allowed them to do that. While we're here, to make it a bit easier, perhaps those of you at the back could just squish in a bit. Would that be possible? And then, yeah, then the ones who are outside, because they can't see the screen even from the window. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Wonderful. Okay, so this picture, I'm sorry, is a little bit confronting. That's true, but of course it is a selfie. Now, this was a photograph that I took at a Palestine protest on October 29th in Melbourne. Now, the photograph itself, I'm not, we're not that interested in the aim of the protests, but more the concept of what these people are doing. That is an experience. Now, when I photograph, I don't photograph selfies. In other words, I don't walk around like this, like most teenage girls. Teenage girls, they've got this wonderful deal. They walk around like this, all depressed because their boyfriend's just broken up, and then they go, and then they sort of walk away. So I'm not interested in any of that, of course, but I would like to capture experience. That's what I do, and you will see that in all of the photographs that we have here. So that's just another example. We can move forward if that's possible. Okay, so this is just a quick photo, which the intention of this photo is really just to show you that you can capture experience in whatever you are photographing. So for instance, I also photograph birds, and I have connection with the Center for Bird Research in Jerusalem. Now, this is an Egyptian goose, which I photographed in a place called Ramat Sharon. And if you have a look, the photograph itself is not what you would regularly expect from a bird photograph, but it's about experience. You're looking at this bird wondering, what is this bird thinking? That's okay. We can stay on this photograph because we can move forward. That's fine. And as I mentioned, actually, I did show this photograph last year when I was in Leeds. I printed a book about 10 years ago with my friend Penelope, who I travel with. So this is Penelope here on our travels. And the idea is to show, again, experience. To show the concept of experience. Penelope here has a Okay, you'll see that Penelope has a boarding pass. She was traveling in my bag, but because she only eats, pardon me, eucalyptus leaves, she needed a special meal, and that required her to have a separate boarding pass. That was a whole story. But you can see how all of this is translated through photographs into experience. If we can move forward. Okay, we've got this photograph now of this purple flower. Now, when I volunteer at these community gardens in Jerusalem, and they're the ones who invited me to make an exhibition of my photographs of the gardens. So this photograph, I'm only going to show you today 2 photographs from that exhibition, and it's also about experience. So I don't know what any of you, I'm going to try to move a little faster because because of time, but I don't know what any of you see in that photograph, but for me, I looked at it and I saw, strangely enough, a soldier coming home from battle, weary, with his injured comrades. Now, that's very poignant today, and I had no idea that this would be so relevant within the next couple of years. But that's what I see in that photograph. Other people see other things, but I've always been moved by this photograph because of that. And you can see the concept of experience from this shot. Can we go to the next one, please? With that. So I'll start telling you the story of this next photograph. It was another photograph from the exhibit, and after the exhibit was shown at the community gardens, I was contacted by the curator of a gallery at a local matnas, at a local community center, and he asked me to relocate the photographs to there, which I did. And the area that it was displayed is outside. I don't know if any of you know the synagogue of Shira Chadasha in Jerusalem. So it was displayed on the walls outside of this synagogue area. And I came in once to pick up a friend after Friday night prayers. And I was sitting in the lobby where the gallery is located. And there were these 2 little kids. So one of them was 6, the other one was 4. And the 6-year-old girl was walking around the room with her 4-year-old brother. And I was sitting in the background watching. And she looks up and she's pointing to this picture with her brother. And she says, have a look at this. Have a look at this flower in the water. Look how proud it is. Look how it's looking with such dignity. I mean, literally these words. And I was shocked. With such dignity to the rest of the garden. And look at the water. You could almost hear the water and the movement. And then this girl continued on with other photographs. And she managed to explain all of them. Well, all of the ones that I was watching. And I came up to her and I said, do you like the pictures? She said, I love them. And I said, you know what? I took them. And we sat and we spoke. This kid was incredible. And it was like that, that light bulb moment. I was so excited. So I felt, like any artist, you feel that you've gotten some message across. I then went to meet her parents and I offered them a tour of the area and a tour of the gardens. It was a very, very special moment. But this is the concept of experience which comes into these sorts of photographs. So let's move forward from that. I was taking a photograph of a gentleman that had this fantastic look. And it turns out he's a street photographer and he only takes black and white. So I tried it. Camera. Okay, so the idea of the book really is to show experiences of what it's like to live in a place. These are not meant to be the standard photographs of a city with all of its stereotypes. It's meant to be everyday photographs. So I'll give you an example. So this photograph is about hair. Okay. Now I'll just say that the photos I always put two photographs together because experiences are generally shared, and I want people to understand that they share something with somebody else who has nothing to do with them in life. So, for instance, here you'll see a photograph. So I'm going to stand up here if that's okay. Okay, you can see those two photographs? Oh, good. Now everybody can see it too. Great. So if you'll see, you've got this fellow here with his long hair and the young lady. Now the title I've given to them is Lo takifu pe'at roshachem, which is a biblical biblical injunction of not to cut your payas. We've all heard that before. Now this fellow, can anybody tell me who they think he might be and how I managed to access him? Because the stories behind the photos are usually much more interesting than anything else. Okay, he's the guard at the supermarket who checks your bags when you go in. That's who this guy is. Lovely, lovely, lovely fellow. Right? That's just one example. Let me see another example. Often you'll take two photographs which, again, have nothing to do with each other separately, but you put them together and they have a certain feel. So let's have a look here. Seeing is believing. Now, there's something a little bit cutesy and naughty about that picture. And in fact, when I was taking a photograph of the fellow, somebody walked in the way and it annoyed me. And I thought, oh, dash, as you say in England. I'm going to have to get rid of that one. And then I thought, oh, it actually goes very well. Seeing is believing. So that's another example of one of the, here we go. Now, this photograph here is of a young man who it's called the Nazarite Way. And this fellow here was just about to go into the army. And he was very, very nervous. He thought his life was over, and that was it. Of course, that's not what happened. He went in and became a commander of his unit. This other gentleman, I adore this picture. He was actually the parking usher at my niece's wedding. And as I was parking the car, I jumped out and I had to get a shot. So the photographs all show different experiences within the city of Jerusalem, and tries to make connections between them. And it shows you life not in that stereotypical way. So what happened was I was actually in Australia exhibiting there when October 7th happened. And what I decided was that, okay, there's got to be some reason I'm here and not at home in Israel. And I decided that probably the most logical thing is because I need to record what's going on here. What's the feeling? So I looked back at one of my blogs. I have a blog, and I looked back at the last two entries. One was from 2009, the other one was from 2014, and they were both about exchanges that Israel had with Hamas. I call them exchanges. We generally call them campaigns. It doesn't matter. And I saw that what was written there was exactly relevant to what was going on today. And it partly frightened me and partly annoyed me that things had not changed in all of that time. So I decided to start documenting what I was seeing going on in Australia. As it happens, I've now been to a number of countries. I've seen a number of things, and I'd like to share them with you because it's all part of the concept of sharing experience through photography. And photography doesn't mean coming out with the latest camera and taking the best photo. It means sharing an experience, because that is 90% of the purpose, my purpose of photography. So I'm going to show you here on my laptop. So this is one of the first one of the first Jewish pro-Israel rallies that came on. That was in early October. So we've all seen things like that, but I think to visualize it gives you a feeling of solidarity with Jews around the world. I think, and pro-Israeli people, I think that's a very, very important experience. Now, if we go on, you can have a look here, for instance, is somebody who came to the rally. This is a Persian fellow. Now, there were quite a number of Persians who came to these rallies, and they were very, very friendly, very warm. Now, this fellow is holding the flag. I think that's the flag of Iran before the Shah. And they're very, very supportive of Israel. There was another one I met at the next rally who brought pre-Shah Persian Empire flag, the Sassanid flag. It was very interesting discussing it with him and what their approach was. Now, what I find so interesting is actually that now that I've been in England for the last few weeks, I've met a number of Persians on the tube, that's the subway for Americans, and in the street shopping and walking around in the forest. And when I present myself as an Israeli and I talk to them, they come out of their shell and they start to get very, very enthusiastic and pro-Israel. It's very interesting to watch. Let's go on. Now, I then went to this was on, as I said before, on October 29th. This was a rally I went to in Melbourne. And these guys appeared. Now, you know, I grew up in Melbourne, which is considered to be, or until recently was considered to be, a very calm place in terms of anti-Semitism, not to have major problems. But the feeling there is extremely difficult. After October 7, people came and said to me, you know what, we're looking at buying a place in Israel. We're trying to work out what to do now. I was amazed. Now, I went to this pro-Palestine rally, and these people here, they just came to the center of town and took over the main road. They blocked the public transport. They blocked everything. And you can see they look like thugs. Now, some of them are, can I use the word woke? Some of them are, I think, not that well educated in terms of what's really going on. But the vast majority of things that were said at this rally was clearly wrong. These people clearly had no idea what they were saying. Now, I'm happy saying that, even though my talks are not meant to have a political agenda. But I do believe in the truth. I know what I see. Let's move on from there. This one also, what a fascinating shot of that little kid. It evokes so many feelings in me, whether it's child abuse, whether it's the fact that I have no idea whether he's, he could be just playing a game on the phone and they're trying to keep him busy. I don't know. But it makes you think. You wonder what is going through the kid's head and how he will be affected by this in the long term. And on the other hand, when we have rallies also, we'll have kids doing something similar. What does that say? I think this one speaks for itself, but seeing it, of course, is a very powerful experience. The next thing I did was I went to what we call in Israel a war room, Hamal. What that is, it's a donation center. So people from all around the world started donating to the Israeli cause, which is a problem, of course, because it's a bit strange that the military does not provide its soldiers with sufficient equipment. They claim they do. Others claim they don't. But it was an interesting experience nonetheless. People wanted to donate. They wanted to feel that they were doing something because, let's face it, who did not have a sense of helplessness after October 7th? Everybody, both us and not us, I should say. Everybody, I think, had a sense of helplessness. So this is a donation center in Melbourne, and you can see all of these things are being packed and sent. obviously not to soldiers. These were to some of the evacuees, people who had to leave their homes because they were under bombardment. And we'll talk about them in a minute. There you can see, this is another shot of that center. It was interesting just going to see. Now, I'll say one of the interesting things is also all of these programs are meant to encourage and enhance the local community as well. So, for instance, volunteers were encouraged in the evenings between 7 and 10, only between the ages of 20 and 40, and a matchmaker was brought along to work with the volunteers during those hours. Here you go, little kids coming along and writing a note on the boxes to the soldiers saying, "We love you and we support you." Now, this is a story I absolutely adore. I was out with a friend. We went for a day's hike just to get away from all the stress, and we were about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, and we're walking around. And at some point, we came to this tiny little town, and we walked past a store, and I saw on a laptop screen, the word ALR written in reverse in Hebrew lettering. And I thought, what's that? What's that all about? So when I asked about it, I was directed to a local tattoo parlor. So I go into the tattoo parlor, and there's this fellow here who is the tattooist. And it turns out that the Indian fellow who's lying there, he has a dog named Ayala. And after October 7th, he said, "Gosh darn it, I want to inscribe this Jewish name on my arm." And so that's what he did. And he was very happy for me to tell the story about his feelings towards Israel. This was, of course, very early on in the piece. But doesn't that say something? It's a little bit of nothing. And he also says, okay. Then I thought, okay, time's come, got to come back to Israel. And all of these changes had occurred. So I come back to the country, and what do I see? As you come out of the sleeve of the aeroplane, now a lot of you have probably been to Israel since over the last year. So you will have seen some of these things. But in my life, I have never seen direction to the bomb shelter as you get off the plane. Then, of course, when you're walking down the corridor to pick up your luggage, what do you see? You've got photographs of the victims, of the hostages. It's very, very confronting. You hear about the number of them, but then you see it again and again and again as you go past each one. Then, of course, as I'm picking up my luggage, what do I see? All these piles. So these piles are of donated goods and products that have been sent to Israel. Many of them have been sent unaccompanied, and they are picked up by people who have been given permission to come through customs to pick them up and take them out and deliver them, whether it's to the army or to other organizations that are assisting people like evacuees. Then I come to my home. What do I see on the corner of my street? A sign to the public bomb shelter. Now, I have a bomb shelter in my building, but I've never seen a sign. I don't even know where the local bomb shelter is because I've got one of my own. But it meant something serious was happening. Of course, I knew something serious was happening. This here was taken in the Orient Hotel. The Orient Hotel is a very fancy hotel in Jerusalem. And this is the cafe restaurant of the hotel. And it's normally very quiet with a little bit of music, nice, quiet environment. You don't make noise, run around with kids there, except that it was taken over for evacuees. So we know that around 250,000 people have left their homes, because of bombardments. That's not just around the Gaza area, but also because of, I'm sorry that my arm's jumping up and down here, but also because of the Hezbollah holding the north to ransom with, they're exhausted. The staff was fantastic, the staff in the hotel. They were patient, they understood the predicament of these people, generally what happened is that they tried to keep communities together. So people were not split up from certain towns, were not split up to different hotels where possible. Because the sense of community is so important. But then you have another problem. You have, after a few months, remember this has been going on for 10 months now. You've got this issue of people stuffed into these little hotel rooms. Many have left, by the way. They've either rented a place or they've moved to larger areas. But some of them are still there. They can't cook. They can't. It's crazy. But what happens is that these people who are there they start to behave in a very non-hotel manner. You know, you've got elderly gentlemen wandering around bare shirt, like without a top, wandering around the corridors. And, you know, it's frightening the kids, you know, and they're scratching themselves. And, you know, you can imagine all of these day-to-day experiences which are not appropriate, and it becomes quite a problem. Let's move on. Okay, so the next thing that I did was I went to see this. This is an enterprise run by Chabad in Katamon in Jerusalem. And it was initially set up by a kid who went to school and noticed that some of his friends didn't have food, and so he decided that he wanted to set up an arrangement where food would be he could share food with his friends. It's now turned into a little factory where visitors come from all over the world. They volunteer and they prepare 1,000 sandwiches a day or something like that. It was a very, very interesting experience to go and be with them. And then at the end, just before we closed up for the day, a representative of Chabad came out and put up on the walls pictures of the previous day's fatalities. And then we said Tehillim, we said Psalms, and we said a prayer for those people who had passed away. It was extremely emotional. You really feel it. Next thing I went to was a tzitzis making factory. You can see they're wearing olive green, which is obviously the military standard. Here are a bunch of girls from an ulpana, from a religious girls' college. And they're all studying the laws of how to make tzitzit. And there are factories like that all around the world. I understand they have in America as well. Then this is from an evening that I photographed of an organization which called Gvahim, and they assist new immigrants. So some of the new immigrants that they assist, it's for employment and other things that they need to settle down after their immigration. And after the lecture and after some of the workshops, they put out all of these goods which people could collect up and put into bags and write notes for the soldiers. This is now, do you remember I said that I went to one of these chamalim, one of these donation centers? So this is now one of the largest in Jerusalem. And they were very happy for the support and for the exposure. You'll see that you can buy these little wristbands there. So I'll go through this fairly quickly, but you can get an idea. This is a mother and daughter who decided that they wanted to come for a couple of days and to give support. There you go. It says, with gratitude to all the soldiers. Very, very special experience. I could talk about each of these things, of course, for hours, and I'm not going to. Then I decided time had come to go to see Hostage Square in central Tel Aviv. Now, there were families of hostages who decided, you know, we need to keep this issue on the agenda. Now, of course, looking back now, that was incredible foresight, considering everything that's gone on since then and the fact that not all the hostages are back. But you can see this, I took it to day 93, you can see of the, on the timer there, the timer there is going constantly. And of course, it's been placed in a very prominent area and the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. And there are a lot of art installations, there are talks, there are workshops, there are groups that come to sing, that come to discuss. And And in fact, one of the interesting things is that over Pesach, they had Seder there, but it was only for families of hostages or victims and survivors from the Gaza communities, which I think was a wonderful and important thing, because it's very a personal experience for those people who have more skin in the game than us who have skin in the game, you know. This lady is a very sweet lady. She actually writes poetry, and she wrote a poem directed to the head of Hamas, which I recorded. She wanted me to publicize it. I'm not going to show it here at the moment, but you can see she's standing against a graffiti board. This is now at the National Library, which just opened up recently. It's a phenomenal building. I highly recommend that anybody who's got time go to have a look. But the front section of the ground floor of the library actually is dedicated to the hostages. And you can see that hostages have their, each has a chair dedicated to them with a book that would be relevant for them. You can see there's a child, Kfir Bibas, one of the two redhead kids who's featured prominently in the news, that's still missing. And then, of course, comes the Nova Festival. Now, the Nova Festival, remember, was the music festival, which was a peace activist festival, where more than 300 people were murdered. A number managed to, I think there were more than 1,000 people there. But it was quite a frightening experience. And what happened was that the debris that had been left behind after the attack was collected and placed in a display at the Tel Aviv Expo buildings, exhibition buildings. And it's been moved to New York. I think it's now closed down in New York. But it recreated the whole environment and experience of what happened on that day. You can't really see at this, unless I enlarge it, which I'm not going to bother doing now, but each of these portable toilets is riddled with bullet holes. And of course, people were hiding in them because they didn't want to be seen by the gunmen. And of course, they're covered in blood as well. These are some of the cars when people were escaping. Now, there is the main car lot is actually still down south, and they're trying to decide what to do with those cars. There are many cars there. Quite a number were burnt to a crisp. Others were just damaged. One interesting thing for us is the fact that when Zaka is the organization, it means it's in Hebrew, it's called Zikui Korbanot Ason, which means the unit that identifies the remains of disaster victims. And what they did was they managed to get as much as they could of some of these victims out of the site of the disaster, but they know that there are parts of human remains inside these cars. And of course, every bit has to be buried. And so, to the best of my understanding, the remaining cars are going to be buried because they contain some of these remnants. If you can't see us, raise your hand on Zoom. No, it's okay. I know that you can't raise your hand if you can't see us. Okay. There were quite a number of other art installations. Excuse my Australian accent. But you can see this one was also at the Nova Festival experience. And this one moved me, and that's why I took this photograph, because it's so evocative of what was going on. You feel the fear just from the colors of this picture. And this one I don't think needs any. Now, of the debris and the other items that were found, many were brought and made part of the exhibit, and they were also available for families, either individuals to come and identify their own things to take home, or for families of the individuals, of the victims who might want to come and take things back. I think many people don't want their stuff back. And of course, for all of us, shoes have a very strong connection for us with other contexts. Going back to the Holocaust, of course. Now, I'd like to change the rhythm a little bit. So now I'd like to talk really about life during conflict, because this is really about everyday life. That's what my photography is about. It's about experience, and it's about everyday life. You walk down the street, this is what you see: a lovely young couple and his rifle. Now, you might see that in peacetime too, of course, but because he's not in uniform, I'm pretty sure that this has nothing to do with everyday life, and more to do with the current situation. Now, this photograph I took because this fellow is actually a good friend of mine. We were at his nephew's wedding, and the reason he's smiling is because I asked to take his photograph. Now, what's happened? Why would he be holding an M16 at a wedding? His son is in the army, came out for his cousin's wedding, and then wanted to dance. And he said, "Dad, can you hold my rifle?" Threw his rifle at him and went off to dance on the dance floor. That ain't normal, people. That's just not normal. But that is life today in Israel. This is at the same wedding. As it happens, the groom, his best friend, who was with him in the army, was killed in the first few weeks. And so what he did was all of the friends came out and they wore these T-shirts that say, "Always in our hearts." And then it's got to the memory of Yosef, their friend. Now, not a great photo. I took it with my phone, but it certainly gives a story. Now, this is another wedding I went to a couple of weeks later. The gentleman up on the top, in the back row, on the second from the left, that is Jonathan Kirsch. So he is a London boy, and he and I were lawyers together at the Ministry of Justice many years ago. He's still there. And so, of course, I came to his son's wedding. And I love this photo because you can see everybody's in conversation. You've got the father talking with one fellow about all of the excitement that's going on. You've got the rabbi talking to the groom and trying to discuss the contract, the ketubah that he's about to sign. You've got the other two in the back who are singing. It's just a beautiful family photo, and it's really an everyday shot. I love this photo. Except then you come to this. And this is the band. And what's on the stage with the band? A whole pile of rifles. Because that's what everybody had to do. They all had to throw their rifles out to the front so that they could go and dance. That's not normal. If anybody here can tell me that they've seen a wedding in the UK like that, I'll be very surprised. Now, this story is a little bit intense. I'll try to make it a little bit quicker. I decided at some point to go off on a tour. Now, there are these tours of the Gaza envelope communities. It's a very, it's a bit strange, this whole disaster tourism business. And so I fought it off for a long time, but then I thought, you know, it's actually a sign of the times. Maybe I should at least go and see what's going on. And of everything that we saw, this one photograph really affected me the most. And I'm going to tell you briefly the story. We came into a house where Hamas, it was in the village of Yad Mordechai, which is on the border of Gaza, very, very close to the border. And this is a photograph of the safe room, the secure room, which is the in-house shelter, if you like. Now, what happened was the Hamas fighters came in and they started shooting up everyone that they could. And of course, they had shot missiles into Israel. One of the reasons I understand was to make sure that everybody ran to a shelter so they knew where to find victims. They came here, they came into this house, they came to the door, and they couldn't open it because the father was inside with his wife and kids and he was holding the door really, really tightly to stop them getting it. They could not get the door open. So what did they do? They put a grenade on the handle. The grenade on the handle served only to blow off the handle. They still couldn't get the door open. So the Hamas guy, what did he do, the terrorist? He tried to kick down the door. If you have a look at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the footprint. Look at this enormous footprint under the door handle. It's phenomenal. But they still couldn't get the door down after kicking it and pushing it. So instead, they decided to leave it and move on to the next house and the next few victims. What actually happened was the family, when they understood that the place was becoming empty, they like that the terrorists had moved on, they actually opened the shelter window. I won't go into how that works, but they opened the shelter window, jumped out. Terrorists were still in the village, but they jumped out, got in the car, and sped off, thankfully without being hit. Went off to Eilat, and within a couple of days were in Europe, and then a couple of days later ended up in South America. This one photo, I think, justifies, for me, my experience that I took from that tour. That's their kitchen, which of course, this of course occurred. They didn't see that, but this occurred after while they were in trying to get to this family. And of course, all around the country, you've got empty seats saying, bring them home. This is what it's like living in Israel. You've got yellow bands all over the country in memory of the hostages. This is after one of the sirens, of course. I was at home at that time. That's my bomb shelter. And you can see everybody sitting there just waiting, mucking around, not much to do. I ended up there a few weeks later when the Iranians bombed. That is, or sent missiles. We can discuss that at question time if that's of interest, but we won't go into that now. Because I really want to show you what the feeling is around the country. Early on, of course, there was this feeling Israel is invincible, finish them. And of course here, together we will win, together we will be victorious. And that is a slogan that's applied to everything, even to extra absorbent paper towels for the kitchen. Okay. Then, of course, there's artworks. There's a lot of artworks around. This is from a whole art exhibition that was made about women and women heroes. I'm not going to discuss it all. I haven't. This represents a particular young woman who saved a kibbutz. We won't go into it because we don't really have time. This one here, this photograph, this drawing was made by a 20-year-old girl who I've known her parents since before she was born. But she got up one, she went to her room one night and said, I've just got to get my feelings out. And she drew this. I don't think you even need too much explanation. It's just such a powerful drawing. And I'll just say the bottom line of what's written there is Hutar Pilsum. Hutar Pilsum means it's been authorized to announce. And they are the words that precede any announcement of a casualty. And that's why you see this person crying. Because when you hear that on the news, you freeze. Everybody feels a punch in the guts when you hear that. This I saw in America a few weeks ago, and I was blown away. So, of course, this is after Hirsch. I can't remember his Golden. I'm sorry, I can't remember his full name. But there is a high-profile hostage whose parents have been very active, and the fact that somebody's gone and put that on their license plate really hit me. Now let's come to, just before we close, we'll come and I just want to show you what I've seen in the UK over the last couple of weeks. This, you can see, here are signs from, this is in London, this is in Belsize Park. Somebody, of course, like everywhere else in the world, we've all seen these posters with pictures of hostages. And you can see in Belsize Park, that's the same. And people, like everywhere else, have been tearing them down. And so there are signs. Tearing down posters of hostages abducted by a terrorist organization is not a brave act of resistance. It's a cowardly act of hate. Does that help us? Not really. But it serves to tell us something. Okay, let's have a look at that. Then I went to a Palestine rally at Westminster. And people were having a ball. Everybody wanted me to photograph them. It was really, really fun. Of course, they don't know who I am and what I'm thinking, but I'm having a look, but they're all having a picnic. Then the cops started wandering through the street. And you know, it was quite impressive. And I thought, who are they going to bust up? Because where they're standing On the left, you've got the pro-Palestine rally, and on the right, you've got the pro-Israel activities. But this one I took just because they look like Keystone cops. I'm sorry, but there's something highly amusing about this photograph, and they all look like they're about to walk into each other. It's almost Dad's armor on steroids. Okay, let's move forward. This, of course, is on the Israeli side of the street. How's that for an experience? Please don't arrest me. Now, this is a very, very important one because I'm going to show you some other photographs in a moment, which that will relate to. Please don't arrest me. Let's have a look here. What a wonderful photo. Now, what's this guy doing there? He was holding a banner. He was together with this fellow. The Zionist massacres and persecution in Gaza, stop them. And of course, I love this photo primarily because of who he's standing next to. They both look so ridiculous. Then I came up to Leeds. Now, have a look in Leeds. People here were also, they were trying to make a big hullabaloo, chanting things, but the chanting makes no sense. And there's no logical intelligence to it in my experience or opinion. It is my experience and opinion. But have a look, that smile says it all. All the smiles say it all. Because these are Instagram pictures. That's what they want, an Instagram experience. And then again, you wonder about the kids and what they're going through. Now, this photo I find quite interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because while I was taking photographs, I went up to one of the policemen because this is what I do in Australia. In Australia, the policemen, when they come to a pro-Israel rally, what they do is they're looking outwards to make sure that the protesters are safe. And when they go to pro-Palestine rallies, they look inwards to make sure that it's not going to explode outwards. So the Jews or the pro-Israelis are always going to the police and saying, thank you for coming. So I went to one of the police women and I said, thank you, I appreciate you being here. And she said, oh, well, you know, we're all, you're entitled to protest. And I said, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm actually Israeli, but I've come to learn and see. It's true. A few weeks ago, I was hiding in a shelter against Hamas missiles, but that's okay. Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. And I continued taking photographs. Now, as it happens, I was with some friends, and in the middle of my photographing, I got a tap on the shoulder. Move. And I started moving and discovered that this policewoman who I'd spoken to had started following me and tried to find me and wanted to question me. So just an oddity, a little experience, which I can't photograph directly, but it certainly put me into the picture. I then wanted to see, well, what are the locals thinking and feeling? You've got this worker who's standing there, bored out of his brains. And my impression was, of watching him, was he's thinking to himself, what are these lunatics doing? Now, that might not be what he's thinking, but it certainly makes you wonder. Now, have a look at all of these people sitting in restaurants. There was one woman sitting in a restaurant, and I saw her watching, and she's just doing this. She's just doing this. I won't say that everybody feels that way, but there was certainly somebody was feeling that way. There you can see all of these different experiences. That's what I wanted. It's the experience so that we can get an insight into a view that is not going to appear on the news. So now I'd like to move to the last section, just about life despite conflict, because life goes on, no matter how, thank you, no matter how difficult things get. And while we're dealing with all of that, life does go on. This is a bar mitzvah that took place at the Kotel at the Western Wall. You can see the grandmothers. Sorry, I should be pointing down here. You can see the grandmothers up there, all excited about the bar mitzvah boy. It's a very, very sweet picture. Here at the same time, these kids were coming to receive their first siddur, their first prayer book at the Kotel. Also a lovely, lovely picture. Gorgeous kids. Life still goes on. This is one of the rabbis taking photos so that he can share it with parents eventually. Now, this photograph got me into a little bit of trouble because the rabbis came up to me and said, hey, the kids are looking at you and not at us. Can you sort of quit it? So I had to move on. But the kids were very, very sweet. Then, of course, the Gay Pride Parade took place. And it was very, very muted this year, extremely muted, because things go on, but of course, in the light of everything that's there. This this picture is quite amusing. Of course, we have a right-wing religious government at the moment, except for the fact that the Speaker of the Knesset happens to be gay. And this is a picture which says, this is a photograph of me after I shook hands with the Speaker of the Knesset. It was just an amusing little picture. You can see this is from the Religious Action Group. And then you've got a lot of religious people who come to support equality. This here is a woman, for instance, who's from an organization which says, we know that you gay people, I say gay, I shouldn't, but everybody who's here sometimes have issues with your parents. You don't get the family support. We are here to provide you that support. Let us act as your parents and give you the support that you might otherwise miss. It's very, very interesting. Nothing to do with October 7th, but it goes on. Life goes on. And then, of course, you get people who still go out to the forest for a glass of wine just before sunset. You've got musical performances. This is a guy called Ro'i, who is a world-famous flautist. He comes to Israel every once in a while. He's Israeli, actually. He appears in my book. I've done some fantastic stuff with him. And of course, here, this is now just outside of Beit Vagan, right, very close to Yad Vashem. If you have a look, you can see what it's like on a wintry day. This photo, I really feel the winter. It pulls me in. It's the experience of these two guys, cold, with plastic on their hats. You know, it speaks to me. And of course, gardening goes on. We continue living life. These are the Tulmusim, the Lupins at Lupin Hill in Jerusalem, in the neighborhood of Arnona. Here's another government protest, which are still taking place. These protests for various reasons. Again, the rain, and of course, traffic jams. All these things are still taking place despite the conflict. That is life in Israel. It's been a very, very difficult time for everybody, I think. And we're all trying to connect in some way. That might even be why some of you have joined here tonight. But I understand it, I relate to it, I'm part of it. And I think it's important to be able to do that. And I'll just say that showing support to Israelis, whether it's by sending letters or going to visit or all of these things, they do boost morale. I honestly believe it. Here's a little plug for me. Of course, my friend Simon is about to drop the computer from exhaustion after having been my tripod for the last little bit. But now I'll just, here we go, we can take that down. Thank you very much. I'll just say that I've continued my blog. It's called The View From Here. You can find it. You just look for my name, alanmeerkin.blogspot.com. And in it, I write about the view from here. I write about what people are experiencing wherever they are in life. And of course, a lot has to do with the helplessness and the not just the helplessness, the things that are empowering. So you're all invited to look at my blog. Anybody who's interested in buying a copy, I have a few copies of my book here. I'm sorry about the technical problems, but I hope that we've sorted it out at some point. And that's just another sign of the times. So thank you very much, everybody. And I appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing your story with us. If anybody has a question in the audience, please put it in the Q&A now. Do we have any questions from people here? No.
Was there a hand at the back there? No? I was scratching his ear. I'm sorry.
Maybe I can ask you a question. In terms of how people react to you as a photographer? Do you feel that's changed in Israel since October the 7th? Are people more guarded? Are people different? Are people less receptive, more receptive?
I think it depends who, but in general, people are fairly receptive, especially if they think that it's going to be promoting what's going on in Israel. Because people there also want a sense of connection, and that means connecting with people overseas, just like people overseas want a feeling of connection with Israel.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being our guest. I've got a little something for you. You didn't know I was also a photographer, did you? But here's a book of some of my pictures, which I hope you'll enjoy.
Oh, thank you very much.
Slightly different slightly different in style to yours. Now, a few words about our upcoming program before we leave you. Next week on the 5th of August, we welcome Lihi Lapid. She's an Israeli author, photojournalist, and columnist. She also happens to be the wife of the former Prime Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. And she'll be talking to me about her recently published novel On Her Own, which is a really quite remarkable book. Then on the 19th of August, we're hosting the joint authors of the book The Counterfeit Countess, about a Jewish mathematician who rescued thousands of Jews during the Holocaust by posing as a fake countess. And finally, for now, on the 2nd of September, we welcome Roger Morehouse to continue the Holocaust theme. He'll be discussing his book, The Forgers, the true story of how Polish diplomats and Jewish activists attempted to save Jews by using Latin American passports. To book for these events and for details about other future events, as well as to see recordings of our past events, please visit milim.org.uk, and you can sign up to our newsletter there to make sure you don't miss anything. All of our online events are free. You are encouraged to make a donation. There's a link in the chat, or you can visit our website. So it remains for me to thank our guest, Alan Meerkin, once again. Thank you so much, Alan, for being our guest. So thank you to our audience here, and thanks to all of you at home. Stay safe. See you soon.